Okay, I'm calling to order a special meeting of the Hayden City Council. It's Tuesday, October the 7th, 2025. Time is whisker past 4 o'clock. May we get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupree?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Would you join me, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to start off with a quickie. Hopefully here we have unfinished business. It's an action item, change order 3 with interstate concrete and asphalt for Ramsey Road, Lancaster Road roundabout revisions. Council's read the packet. Do you have any questions for Alan or staff?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to verify, this is not coming out of the city's hide, right?
It's coming out of the money that was set aside for the project.
Oh, right, okay, so it's within budget.
Okay, any additional questions?
Not a question, Mayor, but I believe I read somewhere where it's anticipated to be meaningfully under the authorized budget, which is always good to hear. I like that.
Okay, there is a recommended action or motion on the memo if somebody wants to make that.
I'll make the motion that we approve the change order number 3 with Interstate Concrete and Asphalt Company for Ramsey Road, Lancaster Road roundabout revisions.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Dupree?
Yep.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Okay, our next item, not an action item, is an update. Lisa's going to provide us an update to the HURA allocation area expansion. As council recalls, we had previous meetings where we voted to expand the district to enable road repair or road enhancements along Government Way. And 2 studies were done, and I believe we're here to get an update.
Yeah, and just for correction, it's to make road investments. So previously was unable to make those road investments due to the fact that certain corners of intersections, the adjacent properties were not included. And just for the record, I do have Megan Conrad and Olivia Metz on the phone here as well to help. Megan was our counsel on this process. She's an attorney in Boise. And then Olivia was the author of the eligibility report and the feasibility study. So things that they are very familiar with that I have dabbled in along the way, but have handed off to capable hands. So in the event that there's questions relative to the process, relative to where we sit right now, or the plans that were prepared, they are ready and able to answer those questions. But they have prepared me well to hopefully not do a terrible job. So thank you, ladies, for being here. I'm going to cover them up so I can show the screen here and they can see it as well. So as mentioned by the mayor, it's been quite a while since council has dabbled in talking about the urban renewal expansion. It was something that was started in, and I'll get to this timeline of the past, started in around March of 2024. That's when council made the directive to staff and authorized the engagement letters for the 2 women that you just saw on the screen to help us navigate the process of expanding the district. Just kind of following through that timeline, between March and September, Olivia was working hard on the eligibility report, for which council adopted in September of 24. That eligibility report gave the direction for the draft plan to be worked on and the economic feasibility plan to be created. Again, draft plan was worked on by the HURA board as well as our council assisting in that, council meaning our civil council, and the economic feasibility happening sort of concurrently in a different lane by Olivia, looking at those, essentially we'll cover that in a moment, but the amount of money due to come in and the projects relative to those monies to be utilized within the district in the time frame that the district is to remain open. Then that was done in January of 25 this year, and then in February, HURA started their work, and you'll see a couple months here, over the several months actually, HURA worked with the consultants and our civil council in really creating the plan expansion, as well as really the majority of their work was done in the economic feasibility area, really drafting out what the project would be. And we do have a member of council who serves on that board, so he can also fill in any gaps that I may be missing, because I didn't go to every one of those meetings. And on September 8th, and I don't have your minutes, so I'm making an assumption that the HURA did pass the resolution amending the capital plan and eligibility report, which would then forward it to the city administrative staff and then off to our planning and zoning commission and council. So that assumption, I'm assuming that's correct.
To the best of my recollection.
Okay, sorry. And then on October 6th, yes, last night, P&Z, due to the timing of their meetings, if we were going to try to make their next meeting, we would miss our publication timeframes. They reviewed the plan in relation to the underlying land use and our comprehensive plan, underlying designations, and found that it was in general conformance with that plan. So as we kind of pick up from today and go forward, this would be current day. Today, what's before you right now is to consider only the publication. The publication is quite a lengthy publication. It will cost us a fair amount of money, just like anytime we come forward to you when we're considering a publication that will make the paper. We want to make you aware of what that is, where we're at. It's a good time to check in with council as well. And assume that we would get authorization to do that, then the next thing would be to submit that on October 10th for publication for a November 18th hearing. There are some things that have to happen between the 10th and the 18th, and you'll see those sort of enumerated here on the remaining portion of the plan, but a lot of those have to deal with some administrative requirements and mailing out to our agencies, our concurrent agencies that go over our area of the proposed new plan area. And then you'll see realistically, if we hold the date of November 18th for a public hearing to consider the expansion, then depending on the number of readings that the council would take with respect to that, you're allowed up to 3, or you can suspend the rules. We would be looking at the adoption either on the 18th of November or sometime respectively after that, dependent upon the direction of council. Those are dates as possibilities. They're not matter of fact, they're just considerations, and those are based on your regularly scheduled meetings. If for whatever reason the plan cannot be adopted, meaning council doesn't agree with the plan as prepared by the Hayden urban area, regional, I get Harbs and HURA, but the HURA board, then you would theoretically list those areas of contention and remand it back to HURA to review. So the timeline, when we think about from March of 24 through today, what does that timeline include? It's just a lot of time to work on and get disciplined at the HURA level about the priority of projects. Mind you, the eligibility report being completed, et cetera, just takes time. So what are the areas that we're amending? These areas were presented to council in sometime around March. We had 6 areas. Council reduced it down to 5 areas. And you'll notice the hatched areas are the new areas of consideration, and those are generally adjacent to or directly impacting a intersection that likely would need to be amended, and the ability to have urban renewal dollars to commit to those projects is why the proposed expansion is before you. This particular slide, Megan put together. I'll do my best, Megan. But when we talk about the purpose and limitations, there is the opportunity to amend a plan. You can do it one time in its existence. There are things that we have to account for and consider as part of those. And this plan amendment isn't any different than what it means to start a plan. It's the same process. So when we think about initiating any kind of either plan amendment or new district, we would follow the same process. So these are just some numbers that kind of conclude what we, council has heard repeatedly over the course of this 18-month exercise, which is we can't exceed more than 10% of the revenue allocation area comparatively against our total area. And you'll see information across the plan and the summary report here illustrating how the plan meets either that requirement or the requirements under Idaho code.
Question.
I'm going to pause here. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I know that we were allowed to expand up to 72 acres, which is 10% of our city's area. Do you remember how many acres we increased by?
Yeah, we'll get to that. You're just one step ahead of me.
Okay, sorry.
I just wanted to give an opportunity for Megan to jump in here if I missed anything that was of significance, importance to publicly state on the record. So Megan, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, council members, Lisa, really just wanted to provide a summary of the legal framework that we're operating in when we do a plan amendment, and really to highlight the scope of the First Amendment. It's the First Amendment looks at the existing plan and just touched the sections that needed to be amended by virtue of adding the area. And also, to the extent it was needed to update some statutory language that had changed within existing law. And then, as you know, the amendment does not extend the duration of the existing district. So the existing district terminates in 2029, recognizing that the final year of revenue will arrive and be used by the agency in 2030. And so really took this as an opportunity to work with HURA and outline what that path from now to that termination deadline looks like. So we're able to provide a little update there. But again, these are bullet points that just provide us with a framework of what we're doing on the amendment side. So happy to stand for any questions as we move through.
If you're okay with me moving on, I'll move to the next slide. So the plan amendment includes, as I showed in the illustration, the 5 new nodes. They are adjacent and generally along Government Way. The total amount, as Councilmember Roeder asked for, is right around 19, a little over 19 acres of land. And then you'll see some of the value added information that's requirement of the statute within Idaho code to meet. And then the conclusion that you'll see there in bold was the section within the eligibility report prepared by Ms. Olivia Metz regarding the final conclusions met. And then the HURA board did accept those. So, it might be worth acknowledging that the plan does state that while the expansion area is relatively small, will generate only about 19,000 in increment through the remaining duration of the revenue allocation area. It covers key safety and infrastructure needs along Government Way, and those projects will be supported by the overall revenue and capacity of the district.
Lisa, that's $19,232 per year?
My understanding is that is total. So it was around $7,000 per year. So that's over the time frame between now and when we end, not per year. And I'll wait to stand corrected if I'm wrong on that.
Lisa,
Yeah.
can you go back to that? And the conclusion there, in layman's or simplified terms, is that, well, the expected revenue isn't really all that much. The impact that it has on the ability to use significantly more funds to complete the otherwise most likely incompletable improvements this is necessary for. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just showing that the parcels themselves aren't being used, so the revenue from those particular pieces of land being brought in isn't what will generate the money to fix the problem intersections, but rather the value of them being in the jurisdiction of the revenue allocation area provides the opportunity to invest those dollars in those
Allows
areas.
her dollars to be used.
Invested, yeah. Is that, do we say the same thing a couple ways that make sense? Okay. These are just the elements of Idaho code that deal with the particular plan requirements. I can make this available to anybody that wants to read them, but this short of making it as Megan alluded to, sort of the framework, this is what we work under. This is sort of where rubber meets the road, pun intended. The existing revenue allocation area total estimated cumulative revenue being brought in over the respectful fiscal years. So you'll see the first year being fiscal year. We call in the city, we call the fiscal year that we end the fiscal year that we start. So when we think about it, it'd be fiscal year 26 that we're working in. So through fiscal year 2030.
Could you go back one slide, please? Something that caught my eye. I thought I saw in here a description of the method of financing. All estimated project costs and the time and relative costs of monetary obligations are to be incurred. So as part of the plan element, we have to have a list that details our projects.
Yeah, and which is exactly what I moved to, which is this showing the total estimated revenue coming in based on anticipated increment occurring. So if, for example, in any one of these projects, they did a new investment on that property and their total baseline assessed value changed, it could change these end numbers. These are estimates.
But my point I wanted to highlight there was that we have to state and identify the projects that we're planning.
And now I'm getting to that. So starting with the first statement, which is what do we think the revenue will be over the remainder of the term of this revenue allocation area? They're estimating right around 6.2 million. And again, making some assumptions on that. Anytime we're estimating, there are some assumptions being made. Over the number of projects that the HURA board has outlined. So as mentioned by Megan, it really was a chance, and under current law, a requirement for new districts to really get disciplined about thinking how they're going to allocate those revenues over projects anticipated before the closure of the district. So you'll see they've broken it up into kind of 3 different groupings. We have the Civic Center, which is the center that HURA is looking at the corner of Government Way, and I'm going to forget the crossroad. Orchard, yeah. I was like, it's a tree. And then some City Hall improvements and McIntyre Park improvements. We'll go see at the next council meeting some requests of council that the city administration is putting forward in light of this plan. And then, of course, the intersections and road improvements that take into account some of the directives council has requested HURA to look at. If revenue comes in greater than what's expected, then they have kind of a catch-all projects on where they could allocate other expenditures or portions thereof to other projects within the revenue allocation area. So what is the action that staff's asking for today? Really, at this point, staff's asking for the authorization to publish the public hearing, which is a lengthy publication. It will include a cost amount that is not typical of a general publication of a hearing. So we want to ensure that if we're going to incur that cost, that council is up to date as to where we're at, why we're here, and again, thinking about the target of where we're going. So there are really 3 directions the council could take today. You could authorize through a motion to publish the plan amendment public hearing notice for a November 18th hearing date. We could continue until a future date, meaning if council needs more time and needs more information, they can direct staff to postpone that decision and bring back, excuse me, any information relative to what you're seeking. Or you can certainly remand back to HURA if you feel that the plan adjustments or considerations need to be taken into place. Go ahead.
What is the estimated cost of publication?
It's several pages, so my guess is it's going to be in the thousands.
Thousands, like tens of thousands?
No,
or-
like probably over $1,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000.
It'll take up several pages of the paper, basically.
We might be the only legal section in there, if that's it.
And we're required to publish the entire thing, not a synopsis of it or some type of modification?
You know, Megan, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but as far as the direction we were given, it was she sent us the publication that had to go in, which included.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just going to bring you up so you can,
I'm
they can see
looking
you.
at it right now.
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, thank you.
7 pages.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members. Lisa, There are statutory provisions that touch on what a notice needs. I think just out of an abundance of transparency, we tried to provide a lot of information in the notice to advise the public as to what will be before the council. And so there's information about how the, the base for the existing district will remain, and agency will continue to receive its allocated share of revenues based on that base year. For the amendment parcels, it's only going to be, if this is approved prior to December 31, 2025, then the base year for the amendment area will be January 1, 2025, and it's from that date that the amendment area will accrue. And then we include the maps and the legals, to just provide additional information to show where this amendment area is coming in, and just highlights a little bit how those funds are anticipated to be used. So it is a lengthy notice, but I do think it provides a lot of information to the public.
And just to be clear, that's the 7 pages in the attachment that you provided?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Again, I think we might take up the entire page that day.
Additional questions for Lisa?
Yes.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Well, just one question. This meeting, it's a very important decision, and one the public hasn't really had a fair opportunity to see or weigh in on. So why is this meeting being held at such an unusual time and not a regular city council meeting?
So in order to try to meet the end of the year date that I showed you in the timeline, which I could go back to and show, we needed to get it published by this Friday. My understanding is the HURA board met and we received the documentations about a week ahead of time. So we had about a week to review that, and recognizing that we had a longer than typical timeframe between council meetings. We had a 3-week period. It was an option for council to consider that. It would have, realistically, if we had waited till October 14th, it would have been the same timeframe that you would have had to review this. That was something I was very cognizant about when we put together the packet, was to give you guys the same amount of time you would in any other council meeting.
And Lisa, to clarify and to add, this is just the publication of the public hearing notice. This is not a decision to expand HURA, so the public will absolutely have a chance to provide their thoughts. Council will have more time. This is not the final decision. We're simply, hopefully going to reach a decision on a publication. That's it.
Yeah, I think there are some implications with the decision to go forward that you'll have to take on, and that is the cost of the legal cost to publish it. And again, being cognizant of that, staff wants to give council, in fact, if we think about it, staff arguably thought about this, of giving council more time between now and when the publication would go forward to be able to have this information at your hands.
You got a follow-up? Or?
Yeah, I have more questions. So there's a couple things on the plan, the Civic Center and the park, that I don't recall being on there a year ago when we first passed this. So in the year that's gone on, Urban Renewal has added those on. So I have some questions about the Civic Center proposal, like who will manage it?
That's a plan that the HURA board has brought forward. It's their revenue allocation area. They review it first and provide their plan for projects to go forward through the end of the revenue allocation period, which is the 2030 year that we've shown. So when we proposed the expansion, it was to allocate money towards those intersections. It wasn't my understanding at the time, nor I think spoken to staff, that when you were mentioning those projects, that they were all inclusive, to only include those. And so HURA in their capacity is looking at the potential of all the projects that they would want to potentially fund.
Right, because when we first voted on it, it was for intersections to be fixed. That was kind of the understanding, but it wasn't promised, that we were told that HURA cannot promise anything to us. So,
Yeah, I think you just
okay.
answered your question.
So I was wondering also about the Civic Center, who will pay like the ongoing costs after the Urban Renewal Agency?
I don't know that it's really
Yeah,
have answers to those questions. It's not my, it's not my building, it's not the city's building. It's,
Right, I think what Sandy's got questions about details associated with the Urban Renewal District's plan, But the agenda item tonight, or specifically what we're doing right now, is looking at the area being expanded, which consists of, is it 5 intersections? So that's what we're here to discuss.
I think that if we go back to the actions to be taken tonight, if it is to remand it back to HURA with answers to those questions, you certainly, as a board, could do that, or as a council could do that.
Yes, because I'd like to be fiscally responsible here and know how much the Hayden taxpayers are going to be required to contribute to the construction and the upkeep of both the park approval and the Civic Center.
So these are looking at options for how they would invest those dollars. It's
So
not-
do we have an input onto how we would want them to invest them? Could we just say roads only and intersections
Again, as
only?
I mentioned in the decision points that council could take tonight, one of them could be to remand back, meaning you're not ready to publish this, to consider the expansion until they either answer those questions or amend their plan, but I don't, that's a decision the council gets to make.
All right, is there a venue for us, or a way for us to submit our questions to Urban Renewal for them to bring back to us?
It's my understanding they have public comment on each meeting. I'm sure you could front load their administrator, executive director.
Is there a formal process
I
where we
don't, I
could?
don't manage them, so I don't know their formal, they have a formality associated with it.
Because I'm just concerned of the ongoing costs of the improvements, and that we were first thinking intersections and roads, and now it's changed to where a majority of the cost is going towards other things. And I'm not saying those other things are good or bad. I'm just saying I want to be responsible with our taxes, especially with all the things that are happening right now with our budget and law enforcement, that we don't incur costs that aren't necessary.
Somebody's trying to talk in there, I think.
Did you have something, Olivia?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to make a clarification on that. It's a great question, Council Member White.
Thank you.
The point of the list of projects is not necessarily, it's as long as we include all projects that the city and the agency would like to do, that doesn't necessarily mean that these are being done at this point in time. But in other best practices, workshops between city council and the agency can work on those priority projects. But that's why we list those additional projects, because we wanted to make sure those intersections were included, so we don't have to have any other issues with that.
So this list of items to be approved tonight is subject to change? Is that, I'm asking?
I believe as long as those projects are in the plan, they can be funded. So that's why it's basically try to put all the projects that, it's kind of like a wish list, right? Sure. Try to have all of the projects that you would like to have done in there, but definitely have those higher price items. So for example, the Civic Center is the highest price item, even more so than the intersections. So if everybody decides to reallocate those funds, then that's great too. But the purpose of the economic feasibility is that it's still, the cash flow still works with the most expensive projects in there.
Okay, is Urban Renewal funding those projects 100%?
I don't know that anybody here speaks on behalf of the district.
Yeah, I think we're getting way off here.
I like to give some input. Since I sit on the urban renewal and have for a number of years, we had a citizen survey that went out that said that there was an interest in a civic center. So HURA saw that, we saw that, so they included as one possibility to be funded by HURA. That's why it's on there. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the senior center, that they would contribute to a building because they want to utilize the building. Now, there's no commitment from them, but and I can't speak for the HURA board, but I would expect that they've said that they can raise money and contribute to the building. So to give you an answer of who's going to pay for all this, it's way too early to know. All that we've done tonight is include a project that may be funded. And maybe the senior center does not put one penny into it. Well, probably it won't happen. So this is a fluid thing, and I think we have to recognize it as a fluid thing. But these are the lists, like our Mets group leader has said, that we've got to include all these things if we want to even consider funding them. And for that reason, I do support this because you can't add to it, but you don't have to fund it.
You done that?
Yep.
If these projects, for example, the senior center, were to come to consideration, they'd have to come before the council probably many times in the process for approvals and probably public hearings and the like, where the citizens would have probably multiple opportunities to express their ideas and considerations on it. Again, this is just a list of things, possibilities, that if those possibilities are considered, they would then go through the normal process of funding and everything else, of which, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay, that the citizens of Hayden would have multiple opportunities to participate in the process.
Again, I think the point, and Councilman Roeder mentioned it, is it may or it could be funded or supported using urban renewal dollars not to exceed, I believe the amount is provided in the plan. So their idea is to put in there, this is a response to legislation that changed at the state level over how revenue allocation areas are supposed to plan for their lifespan and what they're going to do. So to me, it's not a bad thing when we had a district that previously was exempt from that requirement because it predated it to have that open dialogue with the community. And this is that effort coming forward.
Thank you. I have several questions, Lisa. Bear with me, please. I know, I'll be as quick as I can. At the beginning of your presentation, you said that Planning and Zoning had reviewed this and said that they found it to be in general conformance with zoning and land use.
The comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry, comprehensive plan. What did you mean by general?
Yeah, so you look at the overall land, if there was something done on that piece of property over the time frame that it's in the revenue allocation area, then is what they're proposing to do it consistent with the comprehensive plan. So we're not ending up supporting a large change at the comprehensive plan level that drives outcomes that are different than what the city anticipates on our long-range planning efforts.
Okay, thank you.
And so since most of our work is in the public realm, there's not a lot that affects the private sector land.
So one thing I just want to clarify for the record and make sure I understood correctly, with the additional revenue allocation area of this amendment, the anticipated revenue going to HERA would be a total of around $19,000, right?
That's the estimated amount, correct?
Right, or about $3,500 a year, right?
I thought it was around, Olivia, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was around 7,200, but I could be wrong.
7,200 times 5 is...
I think it has to do with when those come on.
Okay, thank you for correcting me. All right. Who here on staff has peer-reviewed the legal changes and updates? I'm asking because when I read this document, it's way over my head professionally, and so...
So we hired counsel as an extension of our staff, and that's what Megan is on our behalf. So she and I have worked together.
Okay, so it's Megan who's peer-reviewed it on behalf of the city?
Correct.
Okay.
Is that a fair assumption? Okay, just making sure you agreed with that.
I originally supported this because I was interested in being able to use HERA funds to help pay for the road intersections that needed traffic improvements. I just want to make sure there's no statutory impediment to the city spending its own money on road improvements if it's within this area. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Okay.
If we have it.
If we have it, that's a great, well, that does bring up a good point. Let's say we're still waiting for, say, grants to come in and HERA ends its term. What happens to those dollars that were allocated for road improvements?
Are you saying ones that were generated or ones that were that didn't generate?
That were generated, that according to that general budget that HERA provided for this, that it's going to be up to about $1.5 million. And let's say we're still waiting for grants from the state and feds to come in, or whatever it is, that to be able to pay for the whole thing. If HERA ends before we get to that project, where does that money go?
Megan, that might be a question for you. My understanding is that the district, just because the revenue allocation area terminates, doesn't mean that the agency goes away, but they still would be bound, as I understand it, by the same process of where they can spend that money. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Mayor, Council Member Lisa. So termination is its own process, but in general, there are three primary things that happen at termination. One is to the extent there is a surplus of funds, and I mean non-obligated surplus, those are passed back to the overlapping taxing districts. The other piece of it is that all of the values go where they need to go. So the base and the increment value are merged. Those go in the denominator of the budget calculation. And then the increase, or the 80% of the increment value that has accrued since 2006 is then placed on the new construction roll for budget capacity increases for the overlapping taxing districts. So to answer your question, it really is one of timing. So certainly if you end a district and you have 1.5 million in reserves, but you don't have grant funding until 3 years after the district closes, there's a pretty strong argument that those are funds that probably should be passed back to the overlapping taxing districts. I think, that's why, from a budget standpoint, annually, the agency has to look and see what projects it is able to fund and may have to reallocate funds if those grant funds ultimately are not going to come in. And I can't specifically speak as to the use of those funds, but there is a timing challenge that does present itself with these projects that just the district closes out before the project can feasibly move forward. And so that's when we terminate a district, we work on a termination plan that really outlines how we use those funds. And so there is a little bit of flexibility, but it really is dependent on the facts. I hope that helps.
I stand corrected then, so.
Okay, so just for my benefit as well as everybody else, it sounds to me there's like a time fuse on use it or lose it of that one money, correct?
As Megan mentioned, it would then, whatever's left over in the surplus would then arguably go back to the respective agencies.
Yeah, no, I get that. So I have a question for you, Alan, is since you're the person closest to planning for these intersections, how far out in the horizon are we looking at fixing up these intersections?
We looked at our plan, our capital plan, and aligned it with what HERA had in order to try and fund these projects with either grant dollars or impact fee dollars or other general funds that we can utilize. You can also, even if you don't complete, for example, some projects, if you complete portions of them, that still is eligible way of spending money.
Okay, so
A big portion of cost sometimes besides construction is the design and land acquisitions. And so we would work really hard to try to get those elements.
I appreciate that. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very confident, what do you think it will be for us to be able to use that money before?
I think if we have money available to use, we can find a way of utilizing it on these projects. We have 3 projects, or we have 1 project at least that's 99% done, designed, that we could start on right-of-way acquisition immediately.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And maybe to your point, Tom, if we got to the point where HERA was closing, grants weren't available, the money that's allocated to other projects could be dumped into the streets projects to complete what I believe council's priority is.
In the area.
Yeah.
And just to share, at the next council meeting, we will be giving you a summary of some of those projects.
That would be very helpful because from my perspective, my priority is the intersections above everything else.
So we have, our city engineer is putting together a proposal, a presentation, and she will be bringing that forward the next.
Cool. Okay.
It's been one of those things where we're itching to go, but we're waiting to get through this process.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, one more question.
Okay.
Okay, so on page 11 of 69 in the document we reviewed, under the 10% value limitation and the 10% geographic limitation, it says, under the act, the base assessed valuation for all revenue allocation areas cannot exceed the gross or net 10% of the current assessed value for the entire city. It never quotes what statute this comes from, whereas it has very helpfully quoted statute everywhere else.
Is that, I brought this up, I don't know if it's in this section, Megan, but I'm gonna guess it might not be.
Oh, go ahead, Megan.
So, thank you, Mayor, council members. Lisa, the 10% valuation test is found in the definition of revenue allocation area, which is in 50-2903, and I think it's subsection 15. And then the 10% geographic limitation, that is found in 50-2033.
Did you want me to bring it up, or do you?
No, it might be helpful for the reader if that was just like a citation in this document. I don't know if you can update it or not, but
It's in the feasibility study. I don't know, right above that financial analysis part. So I'm not sure if you were provided that. I'm not sure what was in your packet.
all right, the reason I'm asking for it is because prior to that, all the rules have been based on land area of the current revenue allocation area. This one is valuation based on the entire city and not the revenue out, and
Yeah,
so.
I did those preliminary estimates very early on, back in March of 2024,
Yeah.
with those total valuations, the current revenue allocation area over the total cost and what opportunities we had to grow that. And we were, in that, we looked at that as is it worth exploring this? And so.
I get that. I'm just saying that it would be helpful for the reader if that citation could be included. I don't know if that boxes up your timeline or if it's an easy edit but anyway, that's my suggestion.
Okay, any other questions for Lisa?
Yes, I have another question. So the decisions that the Urban Renewal Agency is going to make based on this expansion, I'm just looking at the history. And for example, when they purchased the Owl Cafe, they didn't come to the city council and ask us about that. And then when they demolished it, they didn't come and ask us about that. So what kind of guarantee do we have that going forward, they would come to the city council to ask our input on the Civic Center, roads, and the park, and all these different projects?
Again, I don't speak on behalf of the
I was going to say, I think that's a great question to ask Kura.
Okay.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to move to action item C, which is kind of a continuation of this discussion. The action item, again, the goal is to provide a notice to the public to expand our district to include those intersections. As Lisa's hit, unfortunately, or fortunately, the amendment must include the plan. We're not here to prosecute the plan elements or the requirements or HURA. We're simply here to say we can provide the public a notice so they can give us input or not. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, in order to give the public that opportunity to come and express themselves on the issue, I would move that we do publish the public hearing notice for consideration of First Amendment to the Hayden Urban Renewal Capital Improvement Plan.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Tom.
I think considering the subject matter, probably 3 public readings would be warranted rather than to pass the 3. Just do 1.
And that would just be a decision point. You could choose not to suspend the rules at the time that the ordinance is before you on
That would
November
be at the
18th.
ordinance, not today.
Okay, I thought I heard that we would have to do a reading 3 times.
So in order to pass an ordinance under Idaho law, you can you have to do 3 readings.
Okay.
You can suspend the rules and pass it under the first reading by a majority of the council. So at this point, that would happen, that decision point would be on November 18th. You could choose not to suspend the rules, for which we'd bring back the second
Got
reading.
it. Thank you for correcting me. I'm sorry I misunderstood.
It's all right. It was a lot of information.
Any other comments on the motion being made?
Yes, I would just like to say that I'm going to vote no tonight because this decision is moving too quickly and the public hasn't had enough time to review it. The focus of this expansion has shifted from roads and intersections to other projects, and there's still unanswered questions about costs, management, and accountability. Hayden deserves careful review and thoughtful discussion before moving forward. Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion being made? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
No.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Okay, motion passes. May we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, ladies, for being here.
We'll see everybody at 5 o'clock.